I see what ho, chaps and chappets, game chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and as you may have heard recently, Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has been announced. Now, we are here to discuss, firstly, Five Nights at Freddy's. Why is it so popular, and really, does it deserve all that popularity? Is this game overrated?
Well, that's a very interesting point. And just for those of you who didn't know, just to recap there, Five Nights at Freddy's number 4 has indeed been announced with a little teaser picture, nonetheless.
That's right, of course, depicting a character who may be called Nightmare. We're not entirely sure there. He has a grotesque appearance with what appears to be a number of smaller Freddys sort of crawling out of his chest there in very ghastly, gruesome style.
It's terrible.
In keeping with the mangled robotic theme of this game.
Most certainly, he looks awful, as you can see.
Very, very frightful. Now, of course, the question here is, if you don't already know, what is Five Nights at Freddy's? Well, it's a game involving animatronic robots who turn nasty, and you have to work, apparently, as a security guard of the pizza establishment, and basically survive the night making sure these nasty man-killing robots can't make their way into your security office and stuff you inside a robot suit.
Most certainly, yes indeed, and of course, as long as you're watching them, they stand still and they're fine.
That's right.
But as soon as you take your eyes away from them, and they're not actually being seen, as it were, they begin to move, heading into the unsuspecting chap, hopefully to shove them into a suit.
That's right, and of course, if I'm not...
unceremoniously.
Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, the security officer or the player keeps an eye on these robots by means of security cameras. That's why he can see the different rooms of the establishment at the same time inside his office.
Certainly.
Now, of course, this overall concept here we've got going is one of horror and jump scares, but of course we have to say this is not horror like Resident Evil or, Silent Hill or that sort of thing. It's more aimed perhaps at a younger audience.
Well, that's very interesting, yes indeed. It's not that sort of terrible, it's sort of based on jump scares.
Yes.
And of course the whole game, as people may or may not know, is massively popular. It's a hugely watched game, particularly on YouTube as well.
That's right.
And very, very popular. But is it hyped up beyond what it should be? Have they just gone over the top with the hype of this game?
Well, yes, it's a very good question. I mean, as I say there, this game is arguably targeted towards the younger audience with the horror theme there. It's not sort of blood and guts all over the place. It is certainly a scary game, but it's perhaps a scary game that people of all ages might be able to play. And I think this is where we find one of the reasons for its popularity. Obviously, the creator there came up with a very good idea. Let's make a horror game targeted towards the younger generation that they can play and enjoy, and perhaps they can also get in a piece of the action here that other people were perhaps watching on YouTube already with things like horror games and nasty things jumping out the screen at you. But of course, in the Five Nights at Freddy's series, you still have that jump scare thing going, but it's perhaps a bit more kid-friendly.
Most certainly, yes indeed. And of course this will be number 4 in the series of these. I think the first one came out just last year.
Yes.
So this has had a tremendous sort of hype just within a year like this.
Now, yes.
Is it because, as we said there, is it because it's aimed at the perhaps younger sort of generation, maybe, and it has this jump scare thing about it that makes kids sort of scared, and the things themselves are like teddy bears and things like that.
Grotesque ones, yes.
And is it sort of a sort of horror avenue or angle that hasn't been touched before? Your teddy bear's going to get you now.
It's quite an interesting concept. Now, I'm sure a lot of people out there may be thinking to themselves, well, hold on just a minute, this game doesn't look very kid-friendly to me. After all, you have got dismembered eyeballs popping out of robot suits, and that's quite true, of course.
Certainly.
But then you don't have things like, zombie heads getting hacked off and blood everywhere, so it's perhaps a bit of a different spin on the classical horror genre. And of course, the idea of the jump scare in video games is by no means a new thing. It's been around for a very long time, but this game here marks one of the first times in recent memory that we've had a horror game that could be played by younger people as well as older people.
Well, most certainly, yes indeed, but the hype around it. What do you chaps and chapettes out there think of this game? Have you played it? Do you think it's what they are making it out to be, or do you think, well, I don't really like it? And of course, the other thing is, because we're just impartial here, we're just saying, is it hyped up like this? Does it deserve it? And the thing is also, we said younger generation, but is it also a game that older generation people are playing as well, and is that why it's popular? Older people that have perhaps grown up, or, adults, if you like to call them that, or whatever, that are older, are they sort of thinking, well, I kind of like this, I remember playing with my teddy bears or whatever, and I like this sort of kiddie sort of horror.
Okay, exactly. No, I don't think so. I think where we're finding most of the popularity of this game is particularly on places like YouTube. You've got a widespread audience there with lots and lots of younger viewers there playing and enjoying this game, because of course it gives them a bit of a kick perhaps that other games don't quite give. For example, take another very popular game there, Minecraft. Minecraft is hugely popular with all ages as well, but it's not quite the same thing as Freddy's. Freddy's takes care of the horror genre, Minecraft takes care of the creativity genre, and other games, for example like Mario, take care of their own platforming and various other niches that they have. But perhaps companies like Nintendo may have missed a small opportunity here, which was to direct a horror game towards that market. And of course, while we can say that Five Nights at Freddy's does have a large quantity of detractors and people that don't like it, and perhaps also do not approve of its popularity, etc. and so forth, we can say in any case that certainly it's a winning formula that the creator has stumbled across.
Well, most certainly it is, yes indeed. Why have Nintendo not done it, you said there? Or a company similar to that? Well,
actually, you know, that reminds me, Nintendo, it's not strictly true that they haven't done it. I mean, we have to think Luigi's Mansion here.
Well, yes, Luigi's Mansion, not quite as perhaps sinister as the teddy bear going around and sort of chomping you into a suit.
Exactly.
Or a person into a suit.
And perhaps that's it. Maybe it's because Five Nights at Freddy's does have that extreme edge while somehow still managing to be child-friendly. Because, of course, I think the creator himself said that he made the character Foxy whilst on a road trip, actually. And when he finished making the character Foxy, one of the first things he did was to show the jump scares to his children.
Oh, I see. Well, there we are.
So, you know, perhaps it really is aimed at that market.
Yes, but nevertheless, there's a load of hype over it, and there's camps on one side saying that they think it's actually great, and other sides that hate it. And there's even been suggestions perhaps some of the figures, or the characters, such as Freddy, could begin to appear in other games, such as Smash Brothers, and things like that, which has gone down very badly on some camps, and gone down quite well on others. So it just depends, you see.
It depends.
Where will they go with this? And I'm just carrying on here. Where will they go with it? Apparently, someone's bought the rights for a film for Five Nights at Freddy's as well.
Film?
Well, yes, apparently this is big.
You're having me on.
Big. Yes,
I can't believe it. So that the popularity of this game really is starting to spiral. It's certainly got a very large and committed following there. And I think perhaps when Five Nights at Freddy's 4 was announced, it did also generate a lot of positive publicity, with many people speculating perhaps what the nightmare character could be, what he could do, his ghastly appearance, because certainly he's perhaps one of the most extreme appearances of the series so far, with that grotesque appearance of his.
Yes.
It's really putting a new and fresh, more gritty edge on the game, perhaps even more so than it was before.
Well, most certainly, yes indeed. And just about that film there, if you wondered, I think it's Warner Brothers that have announced that they've acquired the rights to adapt the series.
Right.
So there we go. And of course, this Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is announced or supposed to be coming out on none other than, of course, Halloween this year.
Right, yes, we might have guessed, fellows.
Yes.
Apparently this year, so a lot of people are no doubt very much looking forward to this game when it does come out, and perhaps it'll make a lot of sales, I'm sure, in this series. Now, the question is, though, once again we have to ask ourselves, does this game deserve the hype it's got, or is it just hyped up beyond belief because a lot of perhaps younger people just like the game?
Well, let's look at that for a minute. I mean, when you just said that, does it deserve the hype it's got? Well, in terms of a game that has broken the market and done very well in terms of creativity and ideas, perhaps it does deserve hype because it's been done well. But in terms of an actual game, gameplay, how it plays out, etc., maybe it doesn't deserve the hype compared with some other games which are far more in-depth and far more difficult to code and program and do, etc., with cutscenes, etc., so forth.
Right, okay, now for example, we can say that some games out there display very great artistic capability. They're amazingly presented. For example, Assassin's Creed Unity was a beautiful game, almost like a painting, some people say. Very, very impressive graphics. And other games are also superbly done in terms of their mechanics and the way they play. Mario is a legendary platformer, for example, but not all games have this overall eureka moment where they say, I've got an idea, let's make a game about scary teddy bears. And suddenly people go, oh, that sounds good. And even if perhaps it's not quite as well made or coded or presented as other games, it's still hugely popular because people just take to the idea in droves.
Well, exactly, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's sort of, this game is subtly getting in people's heads, scaring them, and they think, oh, this teddy bear is going to get me, and they sort of get into it in a way, perhaps they're being pulled into the game in a way where perhaps other games, it's more like they're outside playing it from the outside in, as it were.
Exactly. Perhaps it's, tugging on certain fears of theirs or certain thoughts of theirs that perhaps other games don't do. For example, as I said, in the case of Assassin's Creed there, it's a game you can sort of look at and it's very, very beautiful, almost like being at an art museum, but it's not quite the same thing that's being triggered there with a scary teddy bear knocking on your door and trying to stuff you into a robot suit.
Well, most certainly, yes, indeed. I think we should also point out here that the whole idea of the jump scare thing and this stalking, the concept is not new. We've seen this, of course, in the Alien films and indeed the Alien game. Very, very similar. We've got the alien there stalking around somewhere, and you don't know where he is.
And many other since, no doubt, of course.
Exactly,
yes.
But to actually do it with a teddy bear now, of course, is a different thing altogether.
It is quite different because it's something, of course, that's normally quite harmless, but in this game it's been warped and twisted into something sinister.
Exactly, yes, exactly. Of course, we all know the aliens and alien things are supposed to be bad, but teddies and what is it they have? I think there's a bird, isn't there?
There's a fox there.
There's a fox, they're supposed to be nice and cuddly and furry.
That's right, but in this one they have sharp teeth and they want to kill you, so it's a bit of a different thing, and perhaps people, are saying, well, this is quite interesting and something we haven't seen before.
Exactly, so what do you think out there? Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has been announced. Are you saying, well, this is absolutely spiffing, yay, can't wait till the 31st of October? Or are you saying, just change the channel, I'm not even interested in that?
Well, exactly.
I mean, that's a channel on the television, not the Game Chat channel. You need to stay tuned into us.
Of course, yes.
I mean, the television channel, I mean.
So, Fellows, what do you make of this game? Is it perhaps something you're going to buy? Is it something you want to burn in the fire? Is it something you're going to totally ignore? Do let us know, I say, for this has indeed been Game Chat and Buddy, bringing you news of Five Nights at Freddy's and indeed some talk there on its popularity. It's certainly huge, whichever way you look at it. Thank you most kindly for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you once more in the next exciting outing, I say.
Yes,
Until then.